If you have a fairly good level of English, but you still sometimes find yourself completely lost in a conversation, it's probably because of connotation. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name's Anissa, and today we are diving into two very important concepts in English: connotation and denotation. These are essential for effective communication because choosing a word with the wrong connotation could have a disastrous result. Just the other day, I had a thoroughly confusing conversation with a student about their new job. Now, we're going to take a look at part of that conversation so you can try and identify the problem. Then I've got lots of quizzes and questions for you to really think about this topic of connotation. As usual, we will also look at some lovely vocabulary and idioms throughout. So grab some paper and a pen to make some notes, and let's get started. We're going to start by taking a look at the sample conversation. If you want to jump ahead and directly look at connotation and denotation, go for it. Otherwise, stay with me. Listen to this conversation and see if you can identify why I got confused. So I started by asking the question, how are you settling into your new job? Great, thanks. The onboarding process was pretty comprehensive, so I don't feel out of my depth. Fantastic. What's your new team like? Well, I haven't met everyone yet, as a couple of people are on leave. But my direct manager asked me lots of questions about my previous projects. He's very nosy about my field of expertise. Oh, sorry to hear that. Maybe you should be more assertive and let him know how you feel. Oh no, I couldn't do that. I'm not arrogant. Hmm. Did you catch why I got confused? Take a minute, look at it, and see if you can identify the problem. So it wasn't their grammar that was the issue, but word choice. Both the words they used and also the words I used that they didn't understand. But let's have a look at the whole conversation and go through some of the really nice vocabulary and idioms. So I started off by asking, how are you settling into your new job? Oh, a beautiful phrasal verb, to settle into a new place or a new activity. It just means to become comfortable. I could have said, are you starting to feel comfortable? But that would not be as natural. So far, the conversation starts out well, and my student responds with, great, thanks. The onboarding process was pretty comprehensive, so I don't feel out of my depth. This is a very natural response with topic-specific vocabulary, which I love. The onboarding process, it's very specific to starting a new job. And then that lovely idiom, to feel out of one's depth. There's also a linker, so, which connects the cause and the effect. And there's so much more. Wow, there's actually a lot going on in this sentence, and the student really impressed me with it. So let's break it down and start by looking at the word pretty. Now, in this situation, pretty doesn't mean beautiful. So think about it. What does it mean? What do you think? Pretty comprehensive. This video is pretty useful. English grammar is pretty difficult. Or pretty easy, depending on your point of view. It's pretty cold in England today. Actually, I'm in the north of England and it's usually cold. So take a look at the pattern. We have pretty, or in American pronunciation, pretty, 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 and your adjective. So this is a modifying adverb. It's modifying that adjective and it's saying to a large degree. So not totally, but to a large degree. So in this case, pretty comprehensive. Not 100%, but to a large degree. Now, let's look at that lovely idiom to be out of one's depth or to feel out of one's depth. Now, if you see an idiom written like this in a dictionary, it just means that you can and you must change that possessive adjective. So, I am out of my depth. You are out of your depth. Bob is out of his depth. Leanne is out of her depth. And then for our plurals, well, you can decide if you're going to say depth or depths. Depths. I know a lot of you don't like pronouncing that, so you might opt to just say depth. That's fine. So we are out of our depth. And what about they? What would you say? They are out of their depth. Great. So what does it mean to be out of your depth? Well, here we're just saying that you are overwhelmed. You're feeling quite stressed and anxious because you do not have the skills that are necessary to cope with that situation or to do that task or activity. So you don't have the skills, you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge to do it successfully. So it's like being in the deep end of a swimming pool when you don't know how to swim. So the swimming pool is really deep. You are out of your depth and you're going to sink. You're going to fail, right? So there are other idioms connected to this, and we're going to have a look at those in another video. So please make sure that you are subscribed and hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. Now, fortunately, my student does not feel overwhelmed by tasks that are too difficult because the onboarding process was pretty comprehensive. In my next question, I asked, what's your new team like? Now, I am not asking, do you like the people in your new team? No, I am asking for a description of that team. What's something like? What's the weather like? Ah, it's cold today. What's your best friend like? Oh, she's really friendly. What's that new restaurant like? It's too expensive. Don't go there. So the answer that I received was, well, I haven't met everyone yet, as a couple of people are on leave. But my direct manager asked me lots of questions about my previous projects. He's very nosy about my field of expertise. Okay, this is where the first mistake happens, and it's all to do with connotation. If you describe someone as being nosy, this is negative. It implies that that person is intrusive. They're asking too many questions, or those questions are too personal. They're about things that really are none of their business. So, can you think of a word that would be more neutral or even positive that you could use instead? You might say, he is very curious about my field of expertise, or he's very interested in my field of expertise. Both of these have a more positive idea. Not that he's being intrusive and nosy, but he just wants to learn more about me and my background, my experience. Let's move on to my response. I said, oh, sorry to hear that. Maybe you should be assertive and let him know how you feel. Now, I started off by expressing sympathy because I understood nosy to be negative and I thought my student was upset or annoyed with her new manager. And my advice was to be assertive. Now, what do you think? Does this have a positive or a negative connotation? How does it make you feel? What associations do you connect with the word assertive? Now, a lot of people think this is negative. And my student also made that same mistake. And this created more confusion in the sentence. Actually, it's quite a positive word because it means that you have the confidence necessary to express yourself in a clear and a direct way. So you're not afraid of voicing your opinion. You stand up for yourself. So I was not telling my student to be aggressive or to be rude. I was simply suggesting it would be a good idea to directly explain to the new manager that the intrusive questioning was not appropriate and it was making them feel uncomfortable. But my student said, "Oh no, I couldn't do that. I'm not arrogant." Okay, so obviously my student thought assertive had a negative connotation. So they used the word arrogant. Now, I know that my student is not arrogant because that's got a negative connotation. Arrogant is quite a negative word. And I'm just saying, hey, you should be more confident. This got very confusing. So let's take a look at how the conversation could have gone very differently if we had used the word interested instead of nosy. How are you settling into your new job? Oh, great, thanks. The onboarding process was pretty comprehensive, so I don't feel out of my depth. Fantastic. What's your new team like? Well, I haven't met everyone yet, as a couple of people are on leave, but my direct manager asked me lots of questions about my previous projects. He's very interested in my field of expertise. Wonderful. Seems like he's already assessing what a valuable addition to the team you'll be. Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with him, and I really think I made the right decision taking this position. As you can see, changing that one word changed the whole flow of the conversation, and now it's a really positive one. So, connotation of a word is really important for effective communication. Okay, let's take a look at these two key terms, starting with denotation. Denotation is the objective meaning, the meaning from a dictionary. You cannot argue with the meaning. So, a pen is a pen, a sandwich is a sandwich. You cannot argue with it. But connotation, this is that extra layer of meaning, the feeling that a word evokes, the associations that you have connected to that word. This is more subjective because your personal experiences play a role in how you perceive that word. So, your cultural background, society, everything affects the connotation of a word. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the connotations that are associated with sandwich. Hmm. What immediately comes to your mind when you think of the word sandwich? It might be that you think, oh, that person doesn't know how to cook. All they can do is take some bread, put some filling, and make a sandwich. Or maybe you might automatically think, wow, that person is very busy. They don't have time to prepare anything more elaborate. So a sandwich is quick. Or you might have a flashback, a memory to a time in primary school or elementary school when you used to eat sandwiches that your parents had given you for lunch. Or maybe you immediately think of being an intern in your first job and going to the vending machine and having stale sandwiches for your lunch. So, whatever you thought of first, that is your personal association that you have to that word. It could be different to my association and my connotation. Okay, let's put aside your personal associations for a moment and just focus on what is commonly accepted. Now, when it comes to connotation, the most basic type of connotation is if a word is positive or negative. And sometimes words can just be neutral. Now, not every word has variations, synonyms, antonyms that are so clearly positive or negative. But we're going to take a look at some common examples. Okay, let's take a look at 5 sets of words. They all have similar denotations. That's the dictionary definition. So they're all kind of synonyms, but they've got different connotations. That's the shades of meaning. So think about these words and decide, are they positive? Are they negative? Maybe they're neutral. Pause this video and think. Okay, let's take a look at the easier ones first. You just had 2 words. So arrogant, confident. Which one's positive? Confident, that's a positive. Arrogant, this gives me the idea that you're too confident and now you could be a little bit annoying. All right. Number 2, foolhardy, brave. Which one's positive? Brave, right? Because if you are foolhardy, you've got that word fool in there. So that kind of means that maybe you're doing something brave, but it's crossing that line and now it's stupid. So be careful. You want to describe someone as being a brave superhero, not a foolhardy person who's putting themselves in danger. What about the next pair? Touristic or touristy? Now, this is a very tricky one that lots of people mix up, but there is a difference. So, touristic, that's positive or just neutral. It's just describing attractions that people like to go and visit. Touristy has the idea of, ugh, there are too many tourists that go there. It's crowded, it's overpriced. I would never go to a touristy restaurant because I know the quality is probably not very good and I'm going to wait a long time to get served. So, touristy places, not for me. Now, slightly more difficult because we've got 3 words here. So, intruder, visitor, guest. Which one is positive? Well, if I invite you to my house, I want you to come and visit me. Technically, you are a guest. So that is the most positive. An intruder is someone who was not invited. They are breaking in, probably to steal things. So don't want that. And a visitor, this is just neutral. You can be a welcome visitor or an unwelcome visitor. Like all the people that knock on my door and try to sell me things, they're visitors, but they're not welcome. And the last one, smell, scent, odor. Which one is positive? Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, Anissa, I know the word aroma, the aroma of perfume. Sure, I'm not saying these are the only synonyms. Aroma is definitely a positive word you can use, but I used scent. So odor, that's negative. I immediately think of rubbish. Oh, that odor. Or chemicals. If you've been cleaning something with strong chemicals, there would be an odor. So smell is just neutral. You can have a good smell, you could have a bad smell. And this is where, when people ask me about what level is the word, is this a B1, is this a C1? Well, think about what you learn first. You first learn neutral words like smell. Then you describe them with a good smell, a bad smell. And then you move on to learn, wait a minute, there is a specific word for this. Aroma, scent, that's positive. Odor, negative. So when is this used? Well, connotative language is used in marketing a lot to get the potential customer really excited about the product. So they aren't really lying about the features, but they are definitely using words that have positive connotations to try and convince you to buy something. So Let's take a look at 3 examples and see if you can identify the one with positive connotation. A used car, a pre-loved car. What do you think's more positive? I mean, it's got the word love in it, so I think we'll go with a pre-loved car, or pre-loved clothing, or pre-loved toys. So instead of saying used or second hand, it's got a more positive connotation. What about this? This lamp is on sale. This lamp is on clearance. Which one do you think is more positive? Well, sale identifies that there is a lower price, but clearance could be that nobody wanted it. It didn't sell very well. It wasn't very popular. So we're trying to get rid of the excess stock that we have. So in this case, sale, much more positive. And the last one. Susie saw an old leather jacket. Sarah spotted a vintage leather jacket. Whose jacket do you think sounds more positive? I mean, nobody wants something that's old, right? But vintage or retro, those are some positive adjectives that really mean the same thing. Okay, I know I said 3 examples, but I think we really need to take a look at this. Imagine that you're trying to buy a house and you're looking for a house that's not in the center of a city. So take a look at these 4 different houses. Which ones do you think are positive and which ones are negative? A house in a secluded location, a remote location, an isolated location, and a private location. Pause and think about it. Okay, let's go through these together. Now, the one that jumped out at me as being positive was private, a private location, because people like things to be private. I want my privacy. So that's a positive. And then we have secluded. If something is secluded, it means that it is away from the noise, the hustle and bustle. It is more peaceful and relaxing. Then remote. This is quite neutral for most people. It could be a little bit negative because it's got that idea that you don't have a close connection to something. It also could mean that it's difficult to get your services like internet. So you might have quite a weak or a poor internet connection if you are so remote. And then the negative one, isolated. If you remember COVID, the pandemic, we had to isolate from other people. We were cut off. We did not have a connection. So if you're in an isolated location, that would be negative. Okay, so we label connotation as being positive, negative, or neutral as our base level. But there's so much more to it than that because we're looking at the different shades of meaning. Remember, in English, like many languages, we've got lots of synonyms, but that doesn't mean they are all exactly the same or that we can use them in exactly the same situations. So let's take the verb to walk as a standard neutral word. Walk. Bob walked into the room. But take a look at these possible synonyms. He creeped. He tiptoed. He strode. He shuffled. Which of these words indicates that he is confident? This is the verb to stride. So if someone strides, they are quite confident. So he strode into the room confidently. And how would you indicate that someone is nervous? I would say either to tiptoe or shuffle. Both of those would indicate that somebody might be nervous, definitely not confident. So you might tiptoe into a room if you don't want anyone to notice you, you don't want to disturb anyone. Now, shuffled, this could also be because Bob is maybe older, so he might be not able to walk very well, or it could be because he's a little bit embarrassed. What about creeped? Positive or negative? This one definitely is negative because what type of person would you expect to creep into a room? I immediately thought of a burglar or a murderer. Maybe I watched too many movies, but that's what immediately came into my mind. So, as you can see, there is a little bit of overlap. There are some personal feelings that come into play, but they all have the idea of walk with different connotations. Okay, at the beginning of this video, I gave you the example of a sandwich, and a sandwich means different things to different people. So, when you're reading something or you're listening to something, they're not going to give you options. What do you think this word means? No, it's up to you to use your own experience to decide what emotion or what figurative meaning you associate with that word. And hopefully, your perspective is the same as the speaker or the writer and what they're intending to say. So, it has to do with your experience, your knowledge of the language, your culture, your beliefs, maybe even your age. For example, if I say the word catfish to these two people, do you think they would think of the same thing? Earlier in this video, I gave you the example of sandwich, and we talked about how the first thing that comes to your mind could be different to the first thing that comes to my mind. And that is based on our experiences, our knowledge of the language, our culture, maybe even our age. So take a look at this example. The word catfish. Now, if I say the word catfish to these two people, what do you think? Are they immediately going to associate it with the same thing? Or do you think it would be different? Well, this older guy, he seems to like the outdoors. So he might immediately think of the literal meaning, a type of fish called a catfish. I mean, we've got salmon, cod, haddock, hake. I think catfish live in rivers. I'm not quite sure, but I know it's a type of fish. However, this young girl, do you think she would automatically think of a fish? I assume that she would automatically think of social media because a catfish is a term used to describe somebody who has a fake profile on social media and they're trying to trick people into believing that they are a different person. And this is why I always say, as a speaker, you have to give more information. You have to check to make sure that your listener understands your intended meaning. Because if you don't do that, you could end up with a lot of confusion. For example, if I say, Bob caught a catfish yesterday, do you know what type of catfish I'm talking about? No, you don't, because you don't know if Bob is a fisherman or if Bob is a policeman. Because you can catch a fish, but you can also catch a criminal. So it could be that Bob is a policeman. So that's my fault because I didn't make it clear to you as the listener what I was talking about. Bad, bad news. Okay, now we are going to have a look at a few words, and it is your turn to immediately think of the denotation and the connotation for each word. Let's do the first one together. So, the word chicken. What is the denotation? What is the actual dictionary definition of a chicken? I think we are all imagining a chicken, a bird, right? Okay, but what is the connotation of a chicken? Hmm. So, normally, if I call somebody a chicken, I am saying that you are a coward. You are not brave. So, come on, don't be such a chicken. Let's go skydiving this weekend. It'll be fun. However, you might have a different connotation. So maybe you immediately thought of your family's weekend barbecue. That's fine. If you've got anything different, I would love to know. So leave me a comment below. Here are 5 words. Pause this video and think about the real meaning and the connotation for each one. So you might have different connotations, but let's take a look at the commonly accepted connotations. So, a dove. A dove normally represents peace, harmony, tranquility, love. We often have doves that are released at weddings. So, a snake. If you describe somebody as being a snake, then you're saying that they are untrustworthy. They are devious. They're quite slippery, so you cannot catch them easily. Very negative. Now, this next one is a very popular word at the moment. Everything seems to be green because we're talking about things that are environmentally friendly. So, green energy is a big catchphrase. Green initiatives at your company. But if you are a green worker, then it could mean that you are inexperienced. Or if you are a green girlfriend or boyfriend, husband or wife, it could mean that you are jealous. Look at those very, very different connotations. Did you get anything else for green? Now, the last two were obviously talking about temperature, something being warm or hot, but the connotation is really different for these two words. So, if a person is warm, then you get the idea that they are very friendly, they're very welcoming. But if somebody is hot, it could mean that they are sexy, so physically very attractive. Or if something is hot, then it could mean that it is very popular or trendy. And this is why we get so confused. Wow, I know this was a really long video, but we have looked at lots of vocabulary, and understanding connotation and denotation can greatly improve your communication skills. It's not just about knowing what a word means, but also understanding the feelings and the associations that that word carries. So, thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, a like, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye, guys.